Hey, Craig, how's it going?
Ah, we're back once again, and this time we have another guest. But first off, I'm the Grumpy Dungeon Master Jay, my co-host,
Grumpy Dungeon Master Christopher.
and our guest is
Grumpy Game Master Kenzer.
Yeah,
David Kenzer. Sorry.
you you have a title already.
Yeah, I make my players refer to me as, His Lord and Majesty.
Do they call you Dave, David, or do they call you Kenzer?
No, they call me Dave or David. Nobody really calls me Kenzer.
Lord Master David.
But actually, people in the industry call me Kenzer all the time.
Yeah, see, I know too many Chris's, so I actually refer to Chris here as Waples all the time.
Hey, pro tip, he prefers Christopher.
Yeah,
I know, he's told me a million times. It doesn't help.
we have a good friend of ours that we game with named Mike, and everyone calls him Mikey, and he hates it. He wants to be called Mike, but we just call him Mikey. Unfortunately,
he's Mikey. That's how I know him, Mikey.
So Lord and Master, right? for all the games. Does that wear down the players after a while when they have to ask?
I don't make them do that. That actually, it's just my my wife had this fancy new car. We got her a few years ago with voice thing on it, and so she would always answer the phone on there if I called her. So I changed my name in her phone to David, my Lord and Master. So when she was driving around with her kids, and she answered it, said that, so she got pissed and made me change it to maybe put that something in on for hers. So now we both, it says like in parentheses, love of my life, which is not that exciting. But what's funny about it is somehow my longtime friend, my high school friend that I game with all the time, that we game with, my wife games with us also, and my son, a guy named James Coletti is also a shareholder at Kenzer Co. Somehow he got my number. He got a new phone, got my number through Suzanne, my wife. And so it says, David, love of my life on his phone. And he's been trying to delete it. He can't. He's at work. He's like a real estate guy. He's at work. And then like, I'll call him and it'll say, David. He's like in front of all his coworkers. So he wants to send me a Zelle. It's to David, love of my life. So yeah.
Poor guy.
That's where Lord and Master comes from.
That's fantastic.
So, David, for the people who don't know who you are, can you give us a quick synopsis of what you are and what you've done?
Sure. My name is David Kenzer. I'm the president of and one of the founding members of Kenzer Company. We had 6 or 7 founding members. We have about 20 shareholders. Kenzer Company's been in business since 1993. Actually, I think it's July 1st, 1993. So we're coming up on 30 years. We started by making sort of second edition Dungeons and Dragons compatible products, and then moved into many other games. We made collectible card games. We've made board games. We've made miniatures games, and we still make lots of role-playing games. And we make the Knights of the Dinner Table comic book / magazine, which has recently surpassed issue 300, which makes it the longest running comic in history, more than any other comic has ever gone. And I know people are sitting there thinking, okay, well, what about Batman and Superman? The record goes to the longest running comic by the same creative team. And the record had been 300. We're at 304. I think I got an invoice, issue 304 this week. So we're well past that. Also turns out that I think that the comic that had the title before was called Cerberus, really famous comic.
Yep.
I think in their numbering, they also included their trade paperbacks and compilations. And so we have like almost 90 of those, 95 of those. So we're actually pushing issue 400.
Yeah, I was going to say the Bundle of Troubles have been out for quite a while. There's a lot of them. So.
Yeah, and we got a bunch of specials too. We have a bunch of different, Cattle Punk specials, and we have Tales from the Vault. We have 5 issues of that. So there's a bunch of different titles in that line.
That's cool.
And so for me personally, I'm probably best known. I do work on Knights of the Dinner Table, not as much as I'd like to. I'm probably best known for Kingdoms of Kalamar campaign setting. That was actually our first product, and it became an official D&D. It was actually the first D&D campaign world for third edition. In whatever that was, 2000, 2001. We were out.
Yeah, would have been right at 2000-ish.
2000, yeah, we were out about a couple months before Forgotten Realms, and it had. If you don't believe me, I could show you. It's I got one here somewhere.
Oh no, I have the book here myself.
Yeah, but your viewers might not. So see, like Dungeons and Dragons, yeah. So I'm a Dungeons and Dragons writer.
That's awesome.
So we did that, and then the year after we made Hackmaster, the role playing game, for the first time, which is the 4th edition of Hackmaster. Was the first one we ever made. The first 3 are fictional in the comic book. And so but now in 2009 we released a new edition of Hackmaster. So that's the one we've been running with for the last 14 years.
Yeah, I'm pretty certain that Hackmaster is the only real tabletop game that spawned out of a comic book.
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting things about Hackmaster. I think the name came out of the comic. So first of all, the name Hackmaster came. I should let Jolly tell this story, but he was writing Knights of the Dinner Table for Dragon magazine for a couple of years. He had a stint in there, and he always had the main game master in there is B.A. Felton. He has a game master shield, and on the front of it, since the beginning of the inception of the comic, it said Dung and Dragons, and so it had been running Dung and Dragons in Dragon magazine for a while, and then one day the editor called him and said, "Oh my God, you can't do this. Like, my lawyers are all over me. Everybody's pissed at me for this." But it had been running. It had been ran for like a year before they noticed. So he had to come up with a different name. So he decided to name it after the character Dave's sword, which was a Hackmaster plus 12. So that's how the name Hackmaster came about. And then for years, fans were asking us to make the game Hackmaster, which we did. But we did that based on, we got a license from from Wizards of the Coast for all of the D&D materials that were made prior to 3rd edition. So Hackmaster was originally based on that. Basic Dungeons & Dragons, base Dungeons & Dragons, 1st edition Dungeons & Dragons, 2nd edition Dungeons & Dragons, 2.5 Dungeons & Dragons. We had all that material, and that was what the original Hackmaster was based on. By the way, also the first retro clone. Like this whole retro clone thing that's going on, that everyone, like, we started that. People don't know that, but like, we actually did. Kenzer Company started that entire retro experience. Prior to that, everybody was like, we want like card flipper mechanics. So
yeah, no, Hackmaster, like, it's based off of early editions of D&D. Now I know you have your own rule set with the current edition. But yeah, like a lot of the retro stuff definitely seems to have spawned out of that.
No, I'll be like very frank with you. So 2001 at Gen Con, I don't know how many we sold. We had a 10 by 10 booth stacked 25 feet high with boxes, and they were all gone. So I don't know how many it was. It was many, many thousands. We were one of the most popular places at Gen Con. I would say we were the most popular, but I'm guessing that WotC also had a pretty popular booth that year because of Dungeons and Dragons. Was only 1 year into 3rd edition. But what, honestly, everyone else in the room was making modules and supplements for 3rd edition D&D. Everyone else was. And then they saw what we were doing, and then 3.5 came out, and then slowly people started going, well, maybe we should, like Dungeon Crawl Classics. By the way, love Goodman Games. None of these guys, they were all doing 3rd edition stuff. We were years ahead of everyone else in that. It's not even like it took them years but what they saw what we were doing, and this is kind of a lot like how the games industry works. You see some booth and it looks like people are giving away gold bars, and you're like, what are they doing? And then you kind of, on the shoulder of giants. I would say you copy them, but you don't. You look at what they're doing and you try to ride that wave. So we were by far the first retro clone.
What's your opinion now on like with the current like situation with fifth edition and the issue with the them trying to really lock down their rule set before they went into Creative Commons and all the other like Pathfinder and Cobalt Press and everyone basically claiming they're going to make their own D&D clone with blackjack and hookers instead, and drop away from the fifth edition rule set. You have any thoughts on that? What happened like about a couple months ago?
Well, I mean, I think it'll all blow over and no one's going to care in a few years. But, we were pretty much in the sidelines because we had already gone our own direction.
Mhm.
And, as someone who creates intellectual property, I think if you're living off someone else's license, it's their right to decide to end that. And I think we painted Wizards as a villain here, or Hasbro as a villain here. Um, but I mean, it's their right, it's their property, and
Mhm.
these other guys were kind of leeching off of them. I mean, if they didn't create their own thing, they just used what was already done, and they built on top of it. They built great stuff. Don't get me wrong,
Mhm.
but it was, their foundation. They didn't own the foundation of the building, right? And so it's a little like, if you're renting if you're renting a store and you have this business you built for 20 years, but then your landlord decides not to renew your lease, you got to move. Like, so I don't think they're going to have to. I think there was enough public outcry that, probably it's going to be okay. But so from our perspective, we looked at it and we were like, wow, it's unfortunate for lots of people. And if there's fans that love these games, it's unfortunate for them. But, we really didn't have a dog in that fight. So I
Yeah,
can see both sides of it.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. There weren't a lot of people speaking about like the fact that that was their rule set and whether or not they could you know I forgot the word that they were using, but basically terminate that license agreement for people using fifth edition and make a new license. And with them coming out with a new edition, it's their right to make a new set of rules and a new set of copyright rules for people to use from, like they did with fourth edition. But no one liked fourth edition. So no one used those rules.
Right.
So it was a very interesting situation. You guys, you guys as in the general, everyone at Kenzer Co. And you guys gave away Hackmaster for what, free? And I think you guys can still download it for free. The basic
Yeah.
rules, right?
You
Yeah,
can you can have the basic rules for free. You can play till fifth level. And
yeah.
then even if you wanted to go beyond that, well, there's an asterisk on that. Just it's not the full rule set.
Mhm.
It's almost the whole rules. It's just like you get four basic character classes. Although I think you probably get more than one priest. The cleric classes and Hackmaster are each their own class completely.
Mhm.
So you get a bunch of several character cleric classes, and then a fighter, magic user, and thief, and then you just get the basic races. You don't get all the sub races and all that other stuff. Actually, species. I'll call them species now instead of races because it's kind of a.
Yeah,
But you have human and elf and dwarf and halfling or hobbit. So th- there's a lot more in the game, but that'll allow you to figure out how to play the mechanics for free and play till fifth level if you want.
yeah,
And then there's also Hackmaster Basic Plus, which is I think 9.99. I think sometimes we sell
yeah.
for 4.99, and that's I think that gives you through level 10, same character classes and races through level 10.
Yeah, that's what I picked up when you guys had that sale when everything was kind of exploding over there. So you were like, "Hey, if you want, you could buy Hackmaster here for 99 cents and get the Basic Plus." So that's what I did.
Yeah, we started
Um,
exploring every other game at that time period just to sort of see what else is out there.
and what I liked was like the system had a lot of choices that you could make. Unlike like fifth edition, where like you're making choices, but it's really not that hard. Every round, you know exactly what you're going to do before things happen. But the choices matter, and they matter more, and there are bigger consequences for bad choices. And I like that aspect of it. So you basically developed Hackmaster originally off of the second edition, and then the new edition is basically your own different rule set. How difficult was it creating your own specific rule set from that point in time?
So, well, first, let me back up a little. So, Hackmaster, the first Hackmaster we made wasn't based on second edition. It was, I would say, it was about 25% first edition, 25% second edition,
Okay.
25% new rules, and 25% attitude. So that was that edition. Making a rule set, I mean, that's kind of what we do. We're game designers, and I specifically am usually responsible for making a lot of the rules up. And so, I wouldn't call it overly difficult, but we used it. What we wanted to do was basically make modern rules that played like first edition Dungeons and Dragons. So streamlined, easier to play, but yet a battle will take about the same amount of time. Your character will grow roughly at the same power or rate, that sort of thing. First edition Dungeons and Dragons was play tested for 15 years by millions and millions of players. So, it works pretty well. And then there's some things that could be fixed about it. But that was kind of what we did. So it was a little bit like reverse engineering. And then we added in a big dose of, my late great partner, Steve Johansson, he died a few years ago. He and I were into trying to make things happen the way they should, to create more verisimilitude. And, there's things that, it's a fantasy game and there's magic and all that stuff, but there's some things that, they should just happen the way you expect it. Like, what's the radius of light from a candle? Okay. Like, that should just be the way it is in real life. You don't have to basically make up a rule for that. And, and then have someone go, wait, candles don't cast a 30-foot radius, like later on. So all we did was we measured a bunch of stuff. So, how far can a character jump? We started with like the most extreme ability scores and said, okay, well, like, where did Jesse Owens go? Like, maybe that's the top for a human, and back it down, right? And so we rooted a lot of the rules in sort of the way results ought to be. And one of the things that I think are hidden in the game that people don't appreciate but do when they play it and just don't realize is that a lot of the results in the game feel the way they should. Just why did that happen that way? It kind of felt like it should happen that way. And that's because the rules were designed to kind of move things that direction. And I mentioned, like candlelights. I mean, I had a basement at the time that had no windows at all. And we just turned off all the lights and lit a candle, and we took a giant tape measure, and we measured like how far, what was the edge of like dim light and what was the edge of blackness. And so that's what it is. I mean, you can look at a bunch of the rules in Hackmaster and know that in the real world, that rule is actually what it is.
That's awesome.
So, that's an easy example of what we did, but we did a bunch of stuff like that. And we wanted to we didn't like a number of things about most game systems, and we wanted to change it. We didn't like everyone sitting around the table waiting for their turn, which is the biggest knock on most games, right? So Christopher takes his turn, and then it's my turn, and so Christopher goes and gets a Coke, because then it's going to be Jay's turn, and then it's going to be Craig's turn, and then Christopher comes back with his Coke, and then he's like, okay, what happened? Because he left, because it's 15 minutes before he gets to do anything, and he knows it. So now we have to spend 5 minutes explaining everything that happened.
Yeah,
and
sorry, I'm a spellcaster. My turns are going to take forever. I apologize.
So in Hackmaster, everything happens at the same time, and it's done by counting by seconds, in real-time seconds, basically. And so that also solves a lot of problems. Like, well, how long would it take for me to climb a ladder? Well, all we had to do was have someone climb a ladder and use a stopwatch, and that goes in the rules. Like, and if you don't know, you just go, all right, like, well, how long would it take for me to climb over the wall? And you go, well, I think it would take someone like 3-4 seconds. So it's going to take you 3-4 seconds. Like, you just make it up as you go, instead of trying to figure out how many rounds or turns, because those are abstract or they're different. In Hackmaster, because it's actual seconds, everybody can just come up with an estimate, and others can debate it and go, wait, you think that's going to take 5 seconds? I think it would take 1. And you're like, oh yeah, right. Seriously? You're going to take off a backpack, try to find your potion in there, and pull it out and drink it? You're going to do that 1 second. I got to stop watch. Let's time you. And the players are like, oh yeah, I guess you're right. So
Yep.
Jay and I do a lot of LARPing, if you're familiar with that. And,
yeah, of course.
And
so like one of the things, potions, yeah,
because you mentioned the potions, like one of the things we do is like we could force feed people potions on a 3 count, but you have to get the potion out and put it next to their face. So people wear all these like little like bandoliers with all the potions on them, so they can just grab them real quick and stick it in people's faces and do the 3 count. And me, I'm the dumbass that has it like in my pouch on my chest. So I gotta first put my sword, open up my pouch, pull up my keyring that has my potions on it, then come over to you and like stick them in your face. And
then it's nighttime, so you have to get a light source just so you can see that you're feeding them the right one.
Yeah.
Except the guy with the things hanging from his chest is going to get hit with a mace, and they're all going to shatter, and they'll be gone.
Fortunately, the LARP doesn't have rules for that, but yeah, that would be a thing that happens.
We had one of our players, one of our guild mates, had a parrot that would feed her potions when she fell in combat. So basically, it would just start with the first potion that she had on the list and just go through all of them until she got picked up. So if her keyring was backwards by chance, she should get all like the poison gases and the death gases first. And then eventually the healing potion, which wouldn't work because she's dead because the parrot fed her the death gas first.
So what did we learn by this? Don't let your parrot have control of potions.
But yeah, a lot of the problems like normal. I do a lot of things with new players in 5th edition for Adventures League. And a lot of players do have a lot of big problems trying to understand that a round is 6 seconds. So you can do whatever you want in that 6-second block of time, with your action. And they always try to do so much more than what they can do. And like trying to explain it and break it down. And, it always takes a while to be able to actually have a system that says, no, it's going to take you 30 seconds to, take off your shield for some reason.
Now, does
30 seconds.
Does Hackmaster have the 5-foot spacing like D&D, or is it more akin to the earlier, like 1st edition, 2nd edition didn't really have that, if I recall correctly? It's been a long time since I've properly run it. So
yeah, there's no forced square system. Doesn't require miniatures. But 5-foot squares are convenient because 2 of them come to 10. It's easy to measure.
Yeah, the math is easy. Yeah,
unless you're doing a metric conversion and you're living in Europe, and then you're then you're screwed. You have to go with the imperial system. So no, we don't. But there are a lot of things that we kind of shoehorned into that a little bit. So the human walking speed is 5 feet. Brian may join us here. He just texted me and said he forgot about it.
I think everybody did today.
Yeah. So we had a human walking is 5 feet, but at 5 feet per second, and I think when we measured it, it varies by how long people's legs are, but we measured it was maybe a little different. It was like, I don't know, 4.8 or 5.2, but we rounded so that it would be easier for 5 square kind of systems. I use a lot of Dwarven Forge. So, in fact, I was preparing this for our next game, but,
oh, wow.
Yeah, that's what my computer's sitting on right now.
Yeah. I first found out about Kenzer Co mid to late 90s. It started with the Knights of the Dinner Table, and 2001, when Kalamar came out, I picked up the book and I actually played in a Kalamar campaign at the time. And I've been running my own homebrew stuff pretty much from that point forward. And so we played in a Kalamar campaign for about a year or so, and then I moved from that area, so I didn't get to finish the campaign, unfortunately. But I've been running my own homebrew stuff ever since then, and I really did like the Kalamar setting. Like I've pulled certain aspects from it myself and thrown them into as to being major parts of my own campaign, specifically with hobgoblins. Like the way you guys handled hobgoblins in that setting, I thought was fantastic. Up to that point, they're just goblins. They're just bigger and stronger. And Kalamar actually gave them a history, a backstory, made them into being something that I had never seen them be previously in Dungeons and Dragons.
Thanks for that. It's good timing for Brian to join if he can, because he and I are probably definitely the two main writers for Kalamar since Steve's gone. And so it'd be great for him to hear that also. But
sure,
yeah, thanks for that.
I may repeat all of that when he gets into the channel.
One of our partners, one of our shareholders I mentioned at the beginning of this call, James Coletti, he wrote a novel featuring the hobgoblins a few years back.
Mm-hmm.
And he was also one of the first shareholders and contributor to Kalamar. So he'd be happy to hear what you just said also.
Yeah, but no, I've really enjoyed Kalamar. I've had the book. I use it occasionally. I'll dig through it and just find other things that I like that I add into my own setting. And because that's really a lot of what settings tend to be. Most of them are, you pick pieces from here and there and combine them to make it work for you and your players.
Right. Well, you'll be happy to know that we're probably almost certainly going to release Kalamar again next year. It'll be the 30th anniversary.
Oh.
It was first published in 94, which obviously if you did the math, but it was, I'll say probably the hardest thing to do in the game industry is to make a fantasy setting. And I don't know, like what a bunch of 20-something knuckleheads were like, hey, we weren't really thrilled with Forgotten Realms, and Greyhawk wasn't really supported in the mid 90s. So
right, it was dead by that point.
Right. I mean, I'm not. We're more closer to Lord of the Rings type guys. So having a sewer system in a city that has black spheres of annihilation to as the sewage system to destroy the waste, like that just didn't do it for me. So we decided to make our own because we thought we could do a better job, but didn't realize, being totally naive and knowing nothing about the gaming industry, that was literally like the hardest thing you could do.
Yeah.
So it took it took about a year for us from the middle of 93 to the middle of 94. And we released it at Origins 94. We also had no idea like how many of a product you would sell, and we brought way too much with us to the convention, which had the double whammy of also being the first one that collectible card games were really big.
Yeah, Magic the Gathering took over in 94, 95.
Yeah, so it was really hard first couple of years. But I had my partner and colleague, partner in crime, Brian, with me. So
who has now finally joined us. Hi,
yeah.
Brian.
Hey, sorry I'm late.
I found a Brian.
It's all good.
So we had introduced David, and he gave us his credentials, like 3% of them in total, I think. And he just talked a little bit about the beginnings of Kenzer Co and Hackmaster and whatnot. And so I guess since you're now here in the channel, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself to everyone that would be listening and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Thanks. I'm Brian Jelke, one of the founding members of Kenzer Company. David and I met in high school and were friends throughout college. And after we got out of college, we kind of looked at what was in the gaming landscape and had the crazy idea that we thought we could do better. It was mostly Dave's idea, but he recruited a posse to come and help him write this fantasy campaign setting that hadn't really been named yet. The name was given to it kind of after we started writing it. So we formed a company to do that in 1993. And basically our first year was just writing and trying to figure out the market. And came out with our first version of Kalamar. I don't know if you talked about that one at all, Dave. The gray covers, 2 books, Greg, he's
Yeah,
going to get one off his shelf, it looks like.
yeah, it looked like he had a number of them.
Yeah.
First one looked like this.
Oh,
This
that's
one's
cool.
this one was an edit copy. So yeah,
That, I think debuted at Origins 1994. And then I
Yep.
didn't go to that one. I think David and one of our other partners went to it, but then I remember being at Gen Con 94 up in Milwaukee, working hard selling that out of our 10 by 10 booth. It was, I mean, those were the days where it was like you really had to grab people off the aisle and say, hey, I've got something that's really cool. You should come and check this out. We'd try and lure them in with the maps, and then we'd tell them why we thought it was great. We've done many other products over the years that since then that tend to sell themselves. It's a lot easier to be at cons and just have people be a huge fan of KODT or something. They come by and pick up all their back issues or their bundles that they haven't had. But yeah, in those early days, it was like you'd be hoarse by the end of the day because you're given the spiel over and over again. But it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I was. Go ahead.
ahead.
Now you go, David.
I was going to say, at that first Gen Con, we picked up our first distributor. I think we picked up more than one, but our first distributor was out of Indiana in Fort Wayne, and they invited us to their open house. So Brian and I went down there, and we're like, "This is great." They had like barrels of steak that you could eat and stuff, and so we went there and just had our one product that was almost sold out already. And we're going to have to figure out like how to reprint it and what to do. But a retailer came up to us and was like, "Why would I ever want to carry your stuff? I've got Dungeons and Dragons from TSR, and they give me all sorts of marketing money, and they give me end caps and all this stuff. Why would I ever carry yours?" And he was super duper aggressive. Turns out that guy has been a really long time customer of ours, especially for Knights of the Dinner Table. He has a game store in Carbondale, I think, Illinois, Southern Illinois, somewhere by SIU.
Oh, Perilous.
Yeah, Castle Perilous. Right. And so he turned out to be a great customer over the last 30 years. But that first time it was a little disconcerting for us. Like we hadn't thought of any of that. So like we didn't think about what a retailer needed to sell our stuff. We didn't care. We just made a game setting that we thought was cool.
Yep.
Yeah, it definitely feels like you guys definitely struck gold, like, between all your guys' personalities and what you guys are making. Any more on that process when you guys were making the game originally? Like that, any challenges that you guys had to overcome?
Well,
Other than measuring light in a basement.
when you talk about the game, Kalamar is a campaign setting. So are you shifting gears to Hackmaster here?
Well, a little bit of both.
Yeah.
I think we've found that over the years, much of our best work comes from kind of a round robin type design and writing style where somebody will write a first draft and then pass it off to somebody else in the group, not just for editing, but to develop things further. Sometimes you hit a wall and you just have to write, fill this in later. And then you pass that off to somebody else and they'll have a brilliant idea on how to do that. David, it looks like you froze unless you're working on being a mime or something.
Not hearing him.
Yeah, he might have lost his connection.
It happens.
We saw the size of his basement, so yeah.
Yeah.
He's typing a message. But talking about Hackmaster, we were working on getting the license, I think, in 1999 with Wizards of the Coast, and there was a lot of writing going on in 2000 for that product, and we had just gotten an office in Mundelein in the Chicago suburbs, and we hadn't really hired a large staff yet, so I think it was in the beginning pretty much me and Jolly Blackburn in that office and running things by each other and trying to divide up the work, and we gradually hired more and more people. But yeah, it just was always good to have that collaborative environment. And I know Jolly gets a lot of that now from Barbara, his wife, especially with Knights of the Dinner Table.
Mm-hmm.
If he's writing something that and he's not sure it's going in the direction he wants it to go, she's a really good sounding board. But he's done that with me plenty of times on Knights of the Dinner Table. Like, oh, do you think this scene is too much? And we'll give him some guidance. And sometimes we want him to do things that he thinks are too much, and he'll talk us down.
David, are you back?
Nope. Well, seems like he's not here. He might have to restart the. Well, they're both gone.
Well, this is Brian. I'm still here. I can hear you.
Yeah. I was talking to David right before you got into the channel about Kalamar. So I first found out about Kenzer Co. late 90s with Knights of the Dinner Table, of which I have probably the first 150 issues or so. So I'm about halfway there. I still got to get the rest of them. And then 2001 or so, I came across the Kalamar campaign setting, picked it up, played in a campaign for it. And then I wasn't able to finish playing in the campaign since I moved, but I still liked that setting a lot. And I've been running a lot of homebrew stuff pretty much ever since that point. And certain things I really enjoyed from Kalamar, so I pulled them into my own homebrew campaign, specifically like the hobgoblins. Up until Kalamar, hobgoblins to me were just, they're just bigger, stronger goblins, And
right.
Kalamar, actually, you guys gave them a life, a history, a setting, a background, and like they were much more warlike, not just things to throw at people. Like these are societies that have tendencies, and I've always used them very consistently in my own campaign settings ever since then.
Yeah, I think it's great. I mean, they're essentially evil humanoids, right? But
Yep.
They're an organized society, so if you encounter some, it's not just like a roll for initiative instant battle. There's potential parley and negotiation with them.
Oh yeah.
And I think one of the most striking ways David has used them in our home campaign as we're adventuring in the Kingdom of Kalamar and the surrounding nations, he makes use of, I'm sure there's a blurb in there somewhere, I forget what it is, but they're soldiers in the Kalamaran army. And sometimes their entire units composed of hobgoblins. And, although I said you can parley and negotiate with them, it often breaks down and ends up in, a skirmish anyway. But we had one of these, and we mostly defeated this unit of hobgoblins that, was probably trying to shake us down for money or something like that. But one of them got away, and I was so worried. It wasn't just the normal, player desire to kill all the humanoids, or, we don't want to let one get away. This guy was a soldier, and he was going to go back and find his superiors and report what happened. So it's like, okay, guys, we just went to war with the Kingdom of Kalamar.
We are now at war with the Hobgoblin Nation. Awesome.
No, it wasn't even the Hobgoblin Nation. That would be fine.
Oh, okay. He was a soldier within the Kingdom of Kalamar.
They were soldiers of the Kingdom of Kalamar.
Oh, yeah, that's even worse.
It was the Empire.
Yeah.
He went to war with the Empire.
Right. So that had my character a little worried, but there were no immediate repercussions. So
yeah,
it worked out okay.
Yeah, and David mentioned earlier that with Kalamar, you guys were trying to build more of a setting that feels Lord of the Rings-esque as opposed to what Forgotten Realms or any of those others were. And one thing I've noticed that was very prominent in the Kingdom of Kalamar books was the languages. And I don't have the book here in front of me, but I recall there being very sort of detailed, here they speak this, here they speak this, here they speak this. And that is something that is very heavily missing from pretty much every D&D setting.
Yeah, everyone speaks
we
common
wanted
or
to-
trade.
Yeah, you all speak common. That's what you speak.
That's a convenience, and it can kind of lead to some lazy role playing, in my opinion. It just makes it more like the real world, right? That there's lots of different languages depending where you come from, and not everyone can communicate very well. So if you want to communicate, you need to either bring somebody smart who knows lots of languages, or use sign language and barter or something, or sometimes lean on magic for that.
Yeah, like I live in Alabama, and there are people around here who speak a completely different language from me.
Can you guys hear me? Am I
Yeah.
back?
Yeah, we hear you, David.
Yeah, I think I agree with what Brian was saying. There's a lot of role playing opportunities. It's really funny because I think we have a reputation with Hackmaster of being this this hack and slash combat focused game, but I actually think we have way more rules and well, a lot more role playing opportunities than most other role playing games have, at least traditional fantasy role playing games. And I think that we actually have mechanics in the game that rewards players for role playing and punishes them, or doesn't reward them if they don't role play. And of course, all players want to maximize the take of their character, so they're going to at least put some effort into it. And so some things that people point to Hackmaster and go, well, it's got quirks and flaws, so I don't want to play a flawed character. But I think what they're missing out is that if you have a character that has a character flaw of some type, it's just something you can role play. I mean, maybe your character is lusty, or maybe your character is superstitious for the number 7 or whatever. It's just something to role play, and it just makes it a lot more fun at the table for everyone else when you're role playing in a role playing game.
Yeah, I've been a huge advocate on here for years about quirks and flaws, like the fact that D&D 5th edition is pretty much planning on they have removed any sort of negatives to your character. It's trite, it's boring, it doesn't add any sort of flavor. People are people, they have flaws.
Well, it's a different philosophy. Dungeons and Dragons, and I don't want to offend anyone. Everyone plays what they like to play.
Sure.
Dungeons and Dragons is more of a game that where it's become over the last few iterations a game of heroes, where you play a hero, and yeah, that's a fun thing to do. Personally, if I want to do that, I'll play a supers game, and so when we look at Hackmaster, the way we tried to design it, and I think we succeeded, is it's a game about the journey to becoming a hero. So your character starts not very strong, but yeah, when you get to higher levels in Hackmaster, you definitely are heroic. You are more of a hero. You might still have some flaws or quirks, personality disorders, but you're a hero. Versus, I think, other games, you start as a hero and become a superhero. And I think it's a lot more fun if you start as a regular kind of person who maybe's got a few skills, and then through your own grit and relying on your friends, you become a hero or even a superhero. But if you want to play that, you could use Hackmaster, and you could just start all your characters at mid to high level, and you'll have the same effect as many other games.
Yeah, that's one problem I've been having with 5th edition is just like everyone is really super strong right out of the gate, and only at like level 1 and 2 do you even have a chance of dying. And by the time you're 6th or 7th level, it's almost near impossible to kill a character or give them any kind of threat that makes them, worry about things that are going on. So that's something that I've been struggling with a lot as a DM. But something that
Yeah, that was one of our design principles too. And like I said, we wanted to be more like Lord of the Rings. I mean, that also is a lot like how we designed Hackmaster. It just happens to be my favorite novel, but as you read it, you go, okay, you take the Mines of Moria. There's hundreds of orcs, right? If that were Dungeons and Dragons, you would just basically turn on them and slaughter them all. You wouldn't be fleeing for your life. And you've got the most powerful characters basically in Middle Earth at the time.
Yeah.
And they're fleeing because there's hundreds of orcs. So we wanted to create that same situation in Hackmaster. So it's really bad news if you get surrounded. You roll. We didn't talk about active defense or attack, but we wanted people to be able to defend themselves. So instead of I just roll a 20-sider and see if I hit you, you would also roll a 20-sider for defense, and the higher roll wins. But if you're being attacked from behind, you only roll an 8-sider for defense. So if you're surrounded by orcs, even if you're a 20th level Hackmaster character, you could be in a world of hurt. That actually you might die from that. Whereas I think even in earlier editions of Dungeons and Dragons, it would be a no-brainer. You would just slaughter them all very quickly. So we wanted to create a place where game masters can always instill fear, basically.
But Dave, there's one thing I would add to that, though. We also recognize the death probability of low-level characters and decided that was kind of out of balance too. So that's why we used to call it the kicker, the hit point kicker. Everybody starts with 10 or 15 or 20 hit points, depending on what your race is, and then you roll from there. So that really, really helped survivability of low-level characters because it gave you a chance to run away after you got hit really bad. But
that's a great point, Bri. And there was two reasons for that, and the other one was sort of a logical thing. There's nowhere to go down when your character starts with 1 hit point, and so if you look at first and second edition Dungeons and Dragons, you had this crazy thing where some people played first level mage, and there were house cats in the world that had more hit points than them. And so we wanted to so we basically gave take humans as your base. They rough and tough start with a base of 20 plus a hit die. It's really 10 plus con plus a hit die, but you have somewhere between 20 and 30 hit points. That means you can have a house cat with 2 hit points or 4 hit points, or a dormouse isn't going to step on your mage and kill him.
Yeah, it's as hilarious as it is in early D&D to die during character creation because of bad rolls. It doesn't really make people want to keep playing that.
I was gonna ask, how did you going back to when you said, did you measure things in real life to get data? How did you? I was going to ask, how did you measure how many stabs somebody could take before they died on the whole one?
We swore we'd never talk about that.
Yeah.
Well, there are things we consulted subject matter experts on, like horse rules. I can't really remember another example of that, but maybe David could.
Yeah.
Well, your aces and eights, we had some ballistic expert. We did some real shooting, but yeah. So
that's cool.
You didn't ask me, about my, a very tricky experience as a game master. So I have killed a player before. And
a player or a character?
Well, so you asked about hit points, and the other players were, they're good at digging ditches. So,
All right, then.
I've moved twice since then. You'll never know.
Yeah, that's one game master to never piss off.
So we absolutely know how many hit points an average human sedentary gamer has.
Yep, not a lot at all.
Depends on your constitution.
Yeah,
more than a house cat.
Oh, those big
Don't ask.
guys that wear the 4X t-shirts, maybe they can take a few hits.
Yeah, probably. As somebody who owns a couple of house cats, I can assure you I have more hit points than they do.
Don't ask us how, but we know it only takes 26 stabs with a big pen to kill somebody.
Jolly pinged me and said he had forgotten, and he's happy to join. I don't know if anyone can reach out to him or not. But also, I have to drop. I told you I had an 8:15.
Yeah, David, it was great talking with you. I'm sorry we didn't get to ask you the questions we wanted to, but we'll throw them at Brian here or Jolly if he shows up.
Well, I voluntarily gave you the answer about that.
Well, yeah, you gave me one of them. We'll throw the Craig thing at them.
Well, the Craig thing, I have an answer for you on that.
Oh, okay.
Craig has a twin brother that was also made into a bag of holding. And if you're familiar with Bag Wars with Knights of the Dinner Table, then there's a Bag War situation going on between Craig and his twin brother.
I need to look that Knights up. I don't know that story.
His twin brother is also named Craig.
Oh, that's even better.
You know. All right, I recommend that we do this again. It was fun. Maybe we could do it again with all of us starting at the same time. But I leave you with my capable colleagues. Brian and Jolly are both hilarious and fun to work with. So enjoy.
Awesome. Would love to, Dave.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Thank you.
So we'll give
it just a moment. We'll try to get Jolly in here and then chat for a bit longer.
Okay.
To fill you in on the Craig thing, Craig is the recording program that we use, but we also pretend that he's a bit of an NPC. And we've been having every guest, we let them add another piece to his story. So what we know of him is he is a full orc barbarian who likes to collect sharp, stabby things. He has a bag of holding that is made out of an ogre's head that is somewhat sentient, and sometimes it gives him the right items. And he also has a taste for bourbon. And now apparently he also has a twin brother that has been made into a bag of holding. But the idea is just to get everybody to keep expanding on this ridiculous character.
Okay.
So we'll ask you about it later in the podcast if you want to add anything to it.
Okay. Noted.
I'm guessing you guys don't use Discord very often.
No, we're members in a lot of these groups. I mean, I have, Jolly was running a campaign called the High Court of Hack. I have an icon for that. I'm a member of the Amalgamated Research Gaming Hub, which is one of our former employees, 4th edition Hackmaster group. Mm-hmm. Member the Hackmaster Players and GMs. Another gaming group, the Sometimes Six. And now you're Grumpy Dungeon Master, but I don't get on this version of social media very much.
Yeah, Chris pretty much lives on here. Me, I use it for this. I'm a member of a lot of groups, and literally the only one I ever come to is this one for doing podcast or playing video games with him. See if Jolly can figure out how to get in.
Yeah, it's you don't use it very often. It's kind of like, okay, I'm
here. I get it. I mess around with this thing occasionally, and I'm always having to ask Chris, how do I do this? And he's like, you've done it 30 times, but I don't know how to do this.
Back in the early 2000s, we had our online forums, which was the equivalent of social media today, I guess.
Yeah, no, I remember those days.
Yeah.
I spent way too much time on the EverQuest forums back in, I guess, early 2000s. And then Facebook came around and Twitter and just sort of killed all of that other than Reddit, which I don't use at all.
We meet people at conventions, and honestly kind of have no idea who they were. And then it's like, oh, I'm Yorkus Rex on the forums. Oh, that's you. Okay, I know who you are.
Yep.
I think part of the confusion on the general channel is
There's two generals.
there's two generals. Yeah.
Yeah. One of them is the typing and posting for memes, and the other one is the voice channel. David finally left. I guess it booted him. So I'm gonna guess you guys started with first edition D&D way back when.
I started with basic D&D way back.
Yeah. Okay.
That's-
I started with Redbox in like 1990, so I started with basic.
oh, really?
Yeah.
90.
Yeah, it's a later edition, I'm sure, because you probably started at an earlier one. But
No, I started in like, I want to say 78 or 79, something like that, with that basic box set that had Keep on the Borderlands in it.
yeah.
And I have an older brother who kind of taught me how to play, and I had a friend who was a little bit older than me and would game master for me. But when I met David in high school, yes, we were playing first edition AD&D.
Yeah, like I was a little late to the game. Well, I say a little late, but I was 15 when I started, so I was born in 75, so you got a few years on me.
Yeah, I was probably about 12 when I started.
Not sure what's going on with Jolly trying to get in. Oh, he got into the channel.
I see him.
Seeing if I can move him. Oh, okay, Chris is back. I'll let him do it. I'd end up clicking the wrong thing and banning him or something. Hey, there we go.
Bobby.
All right, sorry about that.
Hey, Jolly.
Headline time, I lost track of days.
All good. I think everybody forgot we were supposed to be recording tonight, so it's not just you.
Oh,
So let's see. What have we gone over? We went over. We talked with David. We talked about the beginnings of Kenzer Company and Hackmaster, you guys' inspirations.
But we haven't done, since now that Jolly's here, we have not talked enough about Knights of the Dinner Table.
So,
Oh,
Jolly, if you could introduce yourself to our listening audience and explain what Knights at the Dinner Table is, which I'll have to admit right front, I had no idea what it was when
Oh, yeah?
our good friend Bruce the Beer Bandit, who had you on his podcast, Drunk with
Oh,
Buds.
okay, yeah.
I had no idea who Knights at the Dinner Table were, and my wife, when I mentioned that, looked at me with just like shocked disdain and these eyes of like, how did I marry you? And then she ran into our bedroom to her like little stash of RPG stuff and came back out with a stack
Oh,
of
wow.
Knights at the Dinner Table comics and says, "You read these now." And I was like, "Yes, ma'am."
Yeah, it's a strange
So-
thing. You can be around for 30-some years and still be invisible in this business.
So you go ahead and introduce yourself to everybody and explain what Knights at the
Yeah,
Table is.
I'm Jolly Blackburn. I started doing a magazine back in the 90s called Shadis, out of the bedroom with my wife. And there was a strip in the back called Knights at Dinner Table. It's a comic strip that basically deals with gamers sitting around a table playing games. And that was a pretty simple concept. And for some reason, it just took off. And we're still doing it today. I guess that was in 1990. And I met Brian and Dave through the magazine I was doing, because they were our first advertisers, one of our first advertisers. And Brian liked the comic, and got along well with Brian and Dave. So when I ended up leaving my old gig, they invited me to join up with them, and that's what happened. I think in '86. So
I find it funny that there are two characters from the comic named Brian and Dave, and then two of your close friends are Brian and Dave.
Yeah.
The characters were created before we got on board.
Yeah, obviously.
Go ahead,
but
Jelly.
ironically, a lot of both Brian and Dave and our former partner Steve, who passed away, all of them brought personality to the characters. So in a way, they are kind of a part of them, because they help flesh them out and make them real to readers.
So I remember being at one of the Gen Cons in the early 90s, and Jolly, I think you viewed the Knights of the Dinner Table just as like promotional stuff at the time for Shadis. And you were giving away, you had issues 1 through 3 there, and you gave me a copy of each. And I think I mailed my check for the subscription that weekend, or the moment I got home. I was the first subscriber.
Yeah, you were. He was literally the first subscriber to when I went monthly with it, or was planning on going monthly with it, and I was facing.
You said a couple of words there I didn't recognize. Mailed? Check? I'm not familiar with those.
Yeah, we're all dating ourselves now.
I was gearing up in, I think it was 96. I keep going to the 80s, but 96, I was gearing up to go monthly with the strip, which had been a magazine, a strip in a magazine, to becoming its own comic book. I was gearing up to take it monthly, and it was a new venture, so I was having problems, raising money and getting things together, and I get all these checks in for subscriptions, and Brian's was the first one, and I don't think I cased it for like a year, maybe 13. And when I joined the company, we signed the paperwork, and I was like, hey, by the way, I have all these subscriber checks. And Brian's check was among them. I don't even know if the checks were good anymore, because they'd been so long since.
Yeah, I think there's like a 1-year window on checks.
But I was determined not to cash people's checks until I had a product to actually, mail out. I didn't want to be in that kind of trap where
I can definitely say that's not how the game industry works nowadays. The game industry nowadays is you pay me full price for the finished product, and I'll give you the pre-alpha.
Yeah. Maybe you get a finished product down the line.
That was way before Kickstarter.
No.
Yep.
We play a game called 7 Days to Die. It's basically this zombie survival horror game. You're supposed to like build a base and collect to find ammunition and shoot zombies in the head. It's amazing. I love it. That's exactly what I grew up on. And it has been literally in alpha development since like 2010. It's such an old game, and it's like, yep, we're still in early access, guys, but it's still a workable, playable game. And they're one of the few people that actually handle that model right. Unlike other companies, don't shall remain nameless. But so you guys mentioned a Kickstarter. That's actually a good segue into you guys have an
Yeah, a
upcoming
couple of them,
Kickstarter,
but
right?
if I can ever get my act together on my end. I'm just joking. We have a sci-fi. Did they talk about that? Yeah, we have a sci-fi role-playing game that's
Not yet, no.
it's been written and it's mostly done with a couple of supplements. We're waiting for the art to come in, so we can pull together a Kickstarter promotion that actually has art attached to it. And then, yeah,
That's cool. What's it called?
yeah.
Invasion Earth 2021. Or what was it?
Yeah, exactly.
No, 2012. 2112.
It uses some of our previous roles. There's an ancient Hackmaster with a count-up system, some similar stuff. So it's kind of a house system, but just going into the sci-fi arena.
Okay.
Yeah, in a
So,
way, it's not
sci-fi.
a parody or anything like that. It's a total straight humans versus alien warfare type of thing, which happens on Earth. There's a lot of intrigue and covert actions and politics and stuff like that. Should be a lot of fun.
Very cool. And you guys said, I
Yes.
think David mentioned that you guys were at GaryCon this year.
Yeah, we go to GaryCon every year. We've been there since year 0.
You guys are out of Chicago, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
No.
It's
It's a
only
great
a couple
con, though.
hours
It's
for you.
nice.
Yep.
Yeah, we had Luke Gygax on a couple weeks ago now, and that's all he could talk about was GaryCon and how great it was. And we're gonna try to get out there for next year, and try to play all the different kind of games that are out there, beyond just D&D. So I guess for you guys, when you guys are playing a game or designing a game, I think we kind of touched on this a little bit before when David was here. Like what are the key things you guys want in a game, and you can maybe like retread some of the space that David already talked about before you guys had shown up with creating Hackmaster and why you guys broke off to do that, or just in general, if you have any like game theory you want to talk about.
I think one thing that comes to mind is trying to keep players constantly engaged. To me, it's pretty boring when you're sitting around waiting for somebody else to take their turn. That's a game like Yahtzee or something. Somebody's just got to roll their dice, and as an opposite player whose turn it is, you have nothing to do, or is not, you have nothing to do but just sit there. But like in Hackmaster with the count up combat system, your character can do something every second. And so you're constantly thinking of ways to better your position or protect yourself or cut off an enemy or something. So I think that kind of rule, especially in Hackmaster, really creates character engagement. And I like to see that in board games too, where there's instant effects with cards or what special powers or whatever. You see that a little bit in our Great Space Race game, where you can play cards to kind of interrupt the other players. It really keeps you engaged in the game. Even if you're not winning, per se, you still feel like you can do something.
Mm-hmm.
That's an interesting idea for a tabletop game. Because like tabletops traditionally have just been you get your turn, you wait until it goes around through everybody, comes back to you.
Right.
So Yeah, honestly, I kind of want to try that just to see how that actually works. Like I've read through the basic rules of Hackmaster, but I guess it's one of those things. It's hard for me to grasp it until I see it.
Right. Yeah, I mean, if you're ever at a con with us, try and sit down for a demo, or just have us give you the 5-minute spiel on how combat works, and if you have the book and you've read it and it's not quite clicking, you'll have a light bulb go off over your head.
Yeah, I did mention earlier too that when the great issues that Watsy had earlier this year were going on, you guys offered
Right.
the Hackmaster Basic for free, which is still free on your guys' website. And I think it was Hackmaster Basic Plus was only 99 cents. I picked both of those up and got those, and I took a couple quick looks at them. I haven't had a chance to sit down and read everything. So that's my problem as a dungeon master. Is there's so many good things out there to read, so many awesome systems. I just can't play them all.
I want to run all of them, but I literally
One of the cool
get to
things about
tabletop
battle and
once every 2 weeks.
Hackmaster,
So
you have a large
it's so difficult.
battle. Notice people stand up when it's going on because something's happening every second. Like an orc pivots, and now suddenly he's facing you and got you outflanked or something. He changes what you were going to do that turn, and you can't go get a soda or go grab something because the flow of battle and the dance changes so often that you want to watch it and make sure things aren't changing too much against you, or you can take advantage of something. And I just really like that, how everybody's engaged.
Yeah. Jolly and I both have a lot of experience playing magic users in Hackmaster, and I think what he's describing makes it so challenging to really cast effective spells too, because your enemies are always moving. The situation is changing. You think you've got everybody lined up perfectly for a lightning bolt, but I guess what, it's not going to go off for 2
friendly
more
stuff's
seconds
right in the middle of your line of
move.
sight.
Yeah, that. Hey,
I'm not going to stop now.
Yeah, that's their problem, not mine.
It's definitely the combat that usually sells people on the
Gotta stay out of the line of fire, people.
Kind of a little light bulb goes off over their head after about,
I think also, even if you feel like you don't have a big enough group to play or nobody wants to be the game master, you should just sit down and make a character or two. I think it's really fun to go through the character creation process. It can take a while, depending how many options you use and stuff, in half hour, maybe an hour or something. But I kind of like to just sit around and make characters sometimes. I think it's fun.
I mean, half hour to an hour. I just helped my entire player group make a bunch of 3rd edition characters with access to 20 books. That took. God, we were at that for about 6 hours.
Well, I suppose if you weren't familiar with the Hackmaster rules, it would take you a little bit longer.
Sure, yeah. Yep.
I encourage everybody to do that. If you got the basic book, and you're not sure you're going to play, just make a character. That'll give you a bit of a flavor for what the game's like. And then you can bring that character to a convention maybe and use it in an event.
So do you with events because I have never gone to a con and played a tabletop game. I've been there, played Magic, I've played board games, I've never done a tabletop game. Is it you just make a character via the rules and show up to a table? How does that work?
Well, it depends on the game master, right? I mean, most of the time they want things to be balanced, so they'll give you a pre-gen, but we just want people to have fun, so we'll let people bring their own characters.
Okay, so long as it followed the rules for making them.
Oh, of course, yeah. We don't play with cheaters.
Yeah.
I don't buy into that, mister.
Get out of here with your 618s. Go on now.
I don't have a D20, but I have a D22. Will that work? So you guys have been at it for almost 30 years. Do you guys find yourselves David kind of mentioned a little bit of the creative process where, like, he said Jolly currently just sits at home and writes stuff, and you bounce it off your wife, and then it kind of goes around the room. Do you guys have any issues with staying creative after all these years?
For me personally,
especially with like the comic book that you're
just
writing
telling my wife
as well
this a
too, on the
couple
side?
months ago, is that despite doing it for 33 years, as far as a monthly thing where you have to sit down and write so many pages, it's never gotten easier. At the same time, it's never really gotten harder. It's the same grind. Every month, you struggle and struggle to get stuff on paper, and then it becomes a tipping point where you go from hating it, what's on the paper, to, hey, this is kind of cool. I can make something out of this. And I'm getting a finished product, but I've never found like a trick or any kind of magic that just, hey, this is easy now. I can just sit down and knock this out. It's always the same struggle. I think most writers probably say that it's a process. I don't know. Yeah.
Well, it's like that because you're not phoning it in. You want every strip to be really good. So you're putting.
That was one of the reasons I was late
today
tonight. I was reading strips to my wife this morning, and I had this really dreadful feeling like, God, these aren't good. I don't like these. And I had like 12 finished pages, I thought, in bed. I went to sleep yesterday. I spent all day tearing those 12 pages apart and basically just reworked them, reorganized them. And I salvaged. I read them to her. Right, that's what I was doing when Dave let me know that I was missing this. But I was reading her the new strips, and she was like, "This is like really good. This is a lot better than what you read me yesterday." So it's that kind of thing. It goes through that every month. You think you have good pages, and you end up realizing you don't.
Yeah, I would imagine at least with Knights at the Dinner Table material, it shouldn't be too hard to find because there's always some hubbub in the gaming world that's going on, and you're creating comic strips about gamers.
I'll tell you the worst feeling
like
is
we're such ridiculous people as it is.
I'm always writing down ideas and then putting them away, and then I'll pull them out. And I'll be working on a strip based on notes. I'll get maybe 4 or 5 hours into them, and it starts to slowly dawn on me. Like, I've done this strip before, or I've used these notes to write a strip. And I'll stop what I'm doing, and I'll go dig through old issues, and I'm like, I did that one. I used that punchline like 12 years ago. And it's a weird feeling.
Yeah, I can't do the Pack of Doom again.
I don't see why not. Jim Davis has been making the same joke for what 70 years.
This time it's different, right?
Yep. But this time it's this character saying it.
Yeah. Well, I think the other interesting thing is that over the years, the characters have definitely well-defined personalities, right? So even if we are given or find an idea that's really funny for some situation that they might put themselves in, it might not fit with the characters, but the way that Jolly has expanded the Muncieverse with all the different gaming groups, now you've got a much wider selection of personality types.
I've done that a couple of times. There was a famous strip called I Believe,
story ideas into those groups.
GM tricked the entire party to jump into a pool of lava. Like she had like a special trick, but it was written for the knights. And I was trying to lay it out, and it wasn't working. And I gave it to Barb. I said, "Hey, I'm like under the deadline here. Can you try to do something with this while I work on another strip?" She just took that strip and put it for an entirely different group of characters. But, it's just none of them are the same, and it worked with that other group. And I thought that was pretty clever. It wouldn't have occurred to me to try it with that particular strip. Yeah, I think that's what it was. It was like
I would have a hard time imagining BA talking Brian into jumping into a pool of lava.
Yeah. Then it turned out that the strip that she imprinted it on,
Too
that
suspicious
GM
of
was
the
a
game
girl.
master.
Yeah.
And because it was kind of devious what she did, everybody always thought of her as being sweet and innocent. It changed her character. That was like maybe 10 years ago. Since then, she has this sinister side where she plays pranks and doing devious things on the sly on the side. It actually added to her character as well. That was just kind of an accident because of that one strip. So that's fun. I like it when those kind of things happen. So.
Yeah, like I wrote a sequel to one of the things that I published on DM's Guild, and I didn't like how it turned out, and I've been stuck just trying to make it good now for like 2 years. So to be able to do a comic strip as long as you have, and as consistent as you have, and as unique as you have,
Yeah, those are tough.
it's mind-boggling to me.
or to write campaign books.
Yeah.
Like I've been running my old
know that
campaign for
feeling.
over a decade now, but very little of it is on paper. Most of it's up in my head.
Book, like a campaign book, and a lot of it on paper, but I never did get it to our publishable form. Got pulled away into the comic and other things. So.
Yeah, I kind of wish I had the discipline to record our adventures a little bit more tightly than I do. I take chicken scratch notes, and I'm often a mapper and that kind of thing. But I like B.A. Felton's campaign journal in Knights of the Dinner Table for that purpose. It serves its purpose in the comic strips of just telling the background of the story and moving the action along to the next strip. But I always thought it'd be really cool to have that
in the comic?
for all of our adventures, to keep
write them up, mister.
Campaign log, talking about what happened, what we thought of it. Yeah, but I've never had this. I know. It's my own fault for not doing that. But
I've known dungeon masters and played under DMs who have been methodical about campaign notes. Like one guy had been running the same campaign since early first edition, and just had binders upon binders of notes and maps and everything organized. But that's not me, and that's not most of the DMs I know.
Yeah, and usually by the end of the night, everyone's tired. You just want to go home. You're lucky if you've divided up treasure in that same evening, maybe.
I'll hand out XP at the beginning of next game.
Yeah. Maybe we need to take more pictures, treat it like a vacation, like.
To get a trophy shot of your mini next to the dead owlbear mini on the table.
Doom in 1990.
It's great. I remember that.
Make a Shutterfly book of it or something.
Oh my god.
I try just to post pictures of the Adventure League stuff that I run up on Instagram, and I can tell you that I probably succeed about that once a year, let alone doing it every single week. So
yeah,
I don't know what it is. It's just something inside you that doesn't do that social mediaing as good as the current new generation can do it.
Jolly's actually good about photographing our adventures and posting them in real time on Facebook and stuff. I do that once in a while. He was into live streaming video for a while, and we used to get really mad at him for that because we'd swear or say some.
No, it was fun.
Some locker room talk that we weren't proud of.
Aces and Eights campaign,
being
the Old
live
West.
Streamed.
I was using Twitter. I created like 5 or 6 Twitter accounts that were NPCs in the town that players are playing in. And it was like town gossip. If you went to these Twitter accounts, you could listen to these NPCs talk to each other. And they'd be talking about like, hey, did you see that new guy that came into town? And whatever, It was kind of like the Telegraph Wire. Picking up gossip.
Wow.
I thought that was a lot of fun, but I stopped doing it. yeah. A lot of it was just critical.
Like I'm having a crappy day today.
But every once in a while,
I woke up today and stepped in some hashtag
hey, I heard
horseshit.
the gold train's coming in. The gold wagon's coming in today.
That is an interesting concept. What would the Old West have been like if there was Twitter?
Pa died of dysentery. Ma died of dysentery.
Damn you, Gertie Pickens! I'm calling you out.
Some guy showed up today in the village, said his name was Doc Brown. I don't know. Hashtag moron. Hashtag crazy man. Yeah, I still haven't gotten around the whole concept of the social media stuff, and like I'm supposed to be good at it, but it's rough. It's hard, but
No, we
I
need to hire us a 15-year-old kid to do our social media.
Yeah, probably. I just like streaming the games. Honestly, have you guys done that at all? Like, I know you said you're doing the live chat.
Yeah, this was way back.
Set
This
up a
was back
streaming
before
profile and like
Twitch
where
and
the
all
cameras
that,
on
you know.
everybody. And you
Oh yeah,
stream.
this
We were
was
just
on
doing
video.
it.
Jolly was
Okay.
video.
You probably don't remember it. There's a thing
Okay.
called Justin TV. It was like one of the first.
Okay.
It was on there, so you. It was really weird because you'd have like five people
Yeah, I remember it.
watching, and then you would look up and there'd be 300 people, like just
It was
random people.
it was
coming in,
Twitch before Twitch.
pausing to
Twitch
watch.
before Twitch.
Hey, what's going on here? And then you look up, and there'd be zero. The chances were that no one caught what we were saying or even knew who we were. It was just a random stream program.
Yeah.
It was fun.
So outside of your guys' Kickstarters you have upcoming, what are the projects you guys are working on right now?
We're going.
Anything
Was
brewing?
issue 310 of Knights of
Jolly
Daredevil
beside-
going to a bi-monthly format?
Yeah.
Will be double issue. That's kind of that's huge news for us because it's been a monthly for 30 years, I think. So.
Oh wow!
Monthly 64, so now it'll be double sized 2 months. And the reason for that was just give us more of a break between issues, and it saves money on less time on processing subscriptions and dealing with the printer and shipping, all that stuff. So, personally, looking forward to that because it'll mean a little more time to catch our breath between projects. Yeah.
Yeah, a little more rest.
Yeah.
Yeah, David had mentioned that you guys broke a record for having the most consistent running comics series by the same development team.
Yeah, 300 issues. I guess Cerebus Aardvark was the previous record holder.
Well, that's
cool.
good. Congratulations on that.
Oh, thanks.
Here's to 300 more. I mean, you got to pull a
Look at hope.
You just got to stay active for 2 decades longer than possible. So yeah, you have to do this for another 25 years.
If we're doing 6 issues a year, it'll take 50 years to do another 300.
The thing is now, though, with the way things are today, it's like I don't know if any other periodical independent comic it'd be really tough fact with the way PDFs and digital, all that. I think.
Yeah.
The main thing is print advertising is dead, basically, and as far as so many magazines and newspapers are going under.
Yep.
Yeah, but there's still something about having the actual book in your hand.
Oh, I totally agree.
I buy the digital version of all the D&D books, but I have to have the real one in my hands, to be able to actually like sit there and read through things. I can't just do PDFs all the time. I mean, reading comics is okay. There's a couple like show and jump like mangas and stuff. I still read a couple of those, and there's an app that I use to read those, and it's okay, but it's still not the same as having the actual like book in front of you. And I gotta zoom in to read stuff. I'm getting old. I can't see my phone. I gotta hold it away from me and zoom everything in. It's just, if I had the book, it'd be so much easier.
It really come down to how much people are willing to pay for like a print 64-page comic. No advertising, because it's like the print costs they just keep rising and the shipping costs keep rising.
It's like they're trying to put print out of business.
Yeah, you're just forced to. Like, we went 10 years without raising our cover price on the comic, and we ended up raising it right before the pandemic. like $1. Like, okay, finally got to raise it. No one complained. No one even commented on it. Then pandemic hits. It's like all of a sudden you're like, oh man, look at these print costs, and this shipping's going up 3 times, since the pandemic. So crazy.
So, when you guys, I haven't run a Kickstarter myself, but when you guys run the Kickstarter, you said you're just waiting for art for the new one.
Right.
How long does it take you guys to get the print books from those?
So I'm thinking it took us probably 6 weeks to get the last hardback we did back from the printer. We're probably using the same one. Now, did they talk about the revised Hackmaster?
No, we didn't touch on it.
Okay, I didn't know if they talked. That's one. It's not set in stone yet. But that's one that Dave's working on. Dave and Brian, it's not a new edition, but it's taking all the errata from the last 10 years and.
Hackmaster 5.5.
Yeah, I mean, completely compatible with what's already out there, so it's not forcing people to buy a brand new book. But I've been working on that, especially Dave and Brian it's been years. Quietly in the background, we haven't really talked about it publicly a lot, but some people know about it.
I was going to say, were you supposed to talk about it?
We mentioned it on our Facebook group. It's just not something.
Okay,
not
good.
something we're like banging the drum about. Like, hey, this is coming.
It's good. That means I don't have to cut this part out of the
so
podcast.
That's in the works. I didn't know if I figured Dave probably mentioned that, but and then there's something else. I can't remember what it was. We've talked about doing a new edition of Fairy Meat.
Oh, Fairy Meat!
Yeah.
Wow.
It's been long enough that there's so many people that have never heard of it. That's kind of exciting.
Yeah, like I never got to play it, but I remember it. That was in the 90s, early 2000s.
That was our first. It's our first major game after Kalamar, before Hackmaster. Like right there in the wedged in the middle.
I'm pretty sure that is what my wife showed me. Like when she showed me the comics, she pulled out the original rule book of that, and then she showed me the fairies that she had made for the game.
Yeah, okay.
So I can guarantee you that if you produce a new version of Fairy Meat, you have at least one person that will buy the books.
Fun game. It's 1-to-1 ratio scale. I mean, like you actually play your characters on the tabletop. Your fairies. You can jump off soda can. Whatever's on the table is considered legit terrain. Play off.
Oh wow, that's.
Yeah, like she showed me that, and she showed me like the fairy that she had. She had a bunch of cool minis, like still in the box, and it's Fairy Meat, MEATJ.
Yes, that's what I said.
Okay, yeah. And so it was just so cool. Her eyes lit up. She just showed me. She's talking about the fairy that she made. So yeah, she was so excited for that. So yeah, definitely make do one of those. I think now is the time for that too. Like there aren't many, if any, games like that nowadays. And we mentioned to Dave that Jay and I LARP a lot, and half the people there play fairies. They'll play a game that's tabletop fairies. We're all for that.
Fun game.
Yeah, I don't think we sell that one on our website anymore, but there's some out there on eBay for sure.
Yeah, I'm actually on eBay right now looking at them. It's the first thing I did as soon as you said that. I had to see how much these things are going for and can I get it.
And I know that what's that company, Iron Wind? They bought the molds for the minis. They still make the minis, I think.
Yeah, the minis are just. Who designs your guys' minis? At least I guess.
I forget I don't know the name of the individual sculptors, but we had a team back in the day. Someone that was heading up it might have been Brian sculpting us.
Well, the miniature manager we hired was Glenn. His last name escapes me, but our dwarf, one of our foundry dwarf, was involved in making a lot of our miniatures as well. And we actually don't make them anymore. We got rid of our forge or whatever you call it, and gave the rights to Ironwind.
Okay. I was making minis all weekend through Hero Forge alone, and while you can get super creative with stuff like that, like the pre-made minis that you can get, like even if you like look up Fairy Meat and look at the minis that you guys had created for that, they just have much more personality than what you can get off of Hero Forge. I was just gonna say there's a lot of people out there are also just making like really cool like 3D prints and like creating a 3D model and just giving a 3D print out to people to print their own minis. So like there's a not trying to sell you on anything, but there's a huge market out there for people just buying STLs and making customized figures to play board games with. So yeah, it's crazy.
Right.
Hey, I just realized it's 9:00. I gotta pop off, but maybe Jolly can sit down with you guys.
Yeah, we're about ready to wrap up. Brian, nice chatting with you. Jolly, if you want to stick around for a couple of minutes, we got 2 questions to ask you, and then we'll let you run.
All right.
Yeah, Brian.
Brian, thank you very much for coming on.
Thanks, Brian.
All right. Bye.
All right. So typically to wrap up the podcast, we like to ask our guests 2 questions. So the first question is easy enough. So you've been gaming a long time. You've been DMing a long time. So we would like to hear a story, any story of where it's basically a grumpy story from you. It could be a grumpy story where maybe your players didn't do what you expected them to do, or maybe it's just something about tabletopping in general that you don't like. But just think on it for a second and then let us have it.
Oh man, a grumpy story.
Yep. I mean, hell, it could even be. You could even tell a story of B.A. Felton.
Tell a story of someone else being grumpy.
Go for it.
Too.
Well, when it comes to immediately to mind was we had like a 5-year Roll20 campaign going. We was playing for a couple in Australia, from all over the country, and my wife and I were playing here, and she'd play on her laptop, the living room, and I GM from the shed and back. Like I work,
Yep.
office in a separate building. I was running the game, and we're having a pretty good time. I can't remember what was her character. She had a character that was trying to free all the slaves in this small town. And was using tokens on Roll20. One of them was a picture of Britney Spears crying. That was this. And my wife freed her. It was a big deal. It was like a big adventure where she freed the slave and got her out of town and said, go live your life. You're free. So fast forward about 6 months of game time later, she's in this harbor town, and she went in this bar. For some reason, they were going after the proprietor of the inn. They were after him, so they ran upstairs and kicked the door in his bedroom in. And he's a big, heavy guy. He's in bed, and I put the token of Brittany on the on the bed. So this girl that she had freed had ended up being a prostitute in this. And so anyway, we're all laughing because I think it's kind of funny that I was just poking my wife's cage. So I'm laughing, and all of a sudden the door opens to my shed out there. She comes in. She came all the way outside to come get me, like just to come yell at me.
Kicked the door in and got a rolling pin in her hand.
Yeah, she kind of startled me. But the point was, I told her was that she never taught that girl how to take care of herself. She'd always been provided for somebody,
Yep.
You just turned her loose, and she was on her own. She had no one to fend for her, so she ended up being taken advantage of. And she thought about it, and it's like, okay, you're right. So she ended up taking her under her wing, and making sure she was okay after that.
I love the fact that you used a token like that, because that is when I had to run on Roll20 during COVID. I would do that all the time. Just find the most ridiculous tokens or photos and use them. for NPCs.
This was my favorite thing. I had I used Newt from Aliens as a token. He's always my street urchin that was trying to get money out of players. It's a lot of fun.
Unfortunately, I can't remember any of the ones I used, but there was a handful of them that were just ridiculous. Okay, so the last thing that we have all our guests do, and we actually got it from Brian earlier. So Craig is our recording program, but we've always sort of joked about it, and we've turned him into an NPC. And I'm going to give you a whole list of what Craig's backstory is and what he has, and then you get to add something on top of that. It could be anything. Okay, so Craig is a full orc barbarian. He has a brother named Trevor. Let's see. Craig likes to collect sharp, pointy things, specifically knives. He has a fairy girlfriend named Flicker. He has a bag of holding made out of the skull of an ogre that is somewhat sentient, and sometimes it gives him the right items. And he also has a love of bourbon.
Okay.
And what were the ones from earlier today?
And the one that David gave him was that Craig has a twin brother also named Craig, who is also a bag of holding. So if there's anything you want to add to this ridiculous NPC, go right ahead.
I think the only other thing is he has a stat that he has like a 20 in charisma.
Yeah, I think he has a 20 in charisma.
All right. I would say Craig has a weakness for stray animals. He always keeps a pouch of little meat treats. As he runs across a stray animal, and he can lure them to his bag of holding. He can keep them. He hasn't put much thought into it, so he doesn't know what happens to him once they go in there.
Yeah, he just puts them in there for safekeeping. He never checks on them again. Oh man, let's just hope he never does.
I was like, oh, that's so wholesome. Wait a second.
Well, we have now determined that he has a wisdom score or intelligence that's kind of low.
Well, Jolly, it was great having you out. It was great having Brian out and David out. Sorry, couldn't get you all.
Sorry about that. That was totally my fault.
It happens in today's crazy world. I'm just happy that we can still just meet up and talk.
Yeah, it was good.
So I do appreciate you coming out. So I'm going to plug your guys' website again. So it's kenzerco.com, KENZERCO.com, and you can get all the Knights of the Dinner Table comics from there. You can get all the Hackmaster stuff from there as well too,
and the Knights of or Kingdoms of Kalamar, and
everything,
and hopefully fairy meat at some
point.
There's
currently a free issue of K2T up on the front page if you want to read it.
Ooh.
I definitely do. As I was mentioning earlier before you got here, that I think I own probably the first 150 issues or so. I need to finish my collection.
I say you got a lot of catching up to do.
I do. It's been a while.
All right. Thank you so much for coming out, and you have a great,
thank
great
you.
day.
Bye.
Thanks,
Bye.
Jelke. Bye, guys.